The Fall of Bloodglove and the War Hag by J. Wilburn. As she raced toward the castle on her bare feet, Wavela's mottled gray goblin skin glowed with the blue magic of the artifact that may have changed her forever. She wasn't going to need forever, not instead of for. I used for and forever, so I don't want to use the preposition for. With what she had planned. The walls stood tall and white with stones that showed no evidence of spilled blood, the spilled blood these dirty creatures were responsible for. The arrows flew at once, a rain of death on every side of her. Most of the arrows missed. Wavela dodged the thicker and darker clouds of falling arrows, but let me say points. That way we're not repeating arrows every time. The falling points. Could say shafts too, I guess. But some found their target. They had to, really. Human archers were the deadliest creatures ever to plague the land. If it were not so, Blecht would still be alive to love her. The magic that surrounded her... Alright, I have a wrong word here and I don't know what it is. The magic that surrounded her blank, blue, burning... her... like, that's what I meant to say. When you do a typo and it's another word, it takes you forever to figure it out. The magic that surrounded her like blue burning fumes stopped some of those arrows, but not all. Okay. There's a dropped word. The sharp points tore through her tough hide where they hit in sections not covered by her armor. Black blood oozed. So I need to fix that. Oozed from the wounds, but she dared not pull those razor points from her muscle, let's say yet. I'm going to need to remember those arrows are in her so that they'll still be in her at the end of the story. Next, tar-covered projectiles. Okay, I need to make that a hyphen. Next, tar-covered projectiles ignited in the spoons of their catapults. I'm not sure that's the right term. I'm going to look it up later. And hurled through the air as they arced toward her. These were easier to dodge, but when they exploded against the ground, the flames spilled out in all directions like waves of fire. Some of the stuff caught and burned patches of raw pink wound in her flesh. Let's say into. That makes it a little more direct, I think. She did not slow to take the time to smother the burning tar. To do so might be smart, but it would make her a stationary target. Her own survival was not important beyond finishing this attack. As the dirty humans prepared to dump rocks on her head from the top of the walls, all right, I need a comma there, she leapt the moat and crashed through one of the low windows, taking much of the stone frame inside with her. Inside with her, let's say, momentum. Good stuff. All right. One poor archer, who probably thought he was quite safe in that window, stumbled backward in shock. He still tried to fire on her, but she swung her pig-iron sword through his bow, snapping the wood and leather draw, sending his arrow spinning away into a dark corner. Forgetting her sword, she swiped her dark claws through his body, tearing away his clothing, his throat, and much of the top layers of his face. He tumbled away on the floor, bleeding and screaming. She could have easily finished killing him, but his raw agony was like music to her. Let's just go ahead and say ears. I know that's a little cliche, but it works fine. Music to her ears as she pressed on into the hallway. Several shouts carried down from above. They were trying to find where she had ended up. Wavela really wanted to kill every last one of them, but she decided the wiser move would be to cover as much ground as she could while chaos still ruled. There were plenty of humans scampering about these passages as she raced along. Most were not warriors. All right, let me make that plural. Most were not warriors, but rather servants who were caught in the wrong place. She cared not for any of their lives. If they served Bloodglove or his hag, they were her enemy and had contributed to the senseless slaying of her man. Human blood as red as juice from a poisonous berry, painted from, let's make that plural, from poisonous berries. All right, that's not how you spell that. Come on now. There we go. From poisonous berries painted the walls as she passed. The rest of their guts spilled out across the flagstones behind her. Let's say she doesn't like humans, so we need to make humans repulsive to her. These things stunk as bad on the inside as they did on the outside. She could not afford to enjoy the work of her revenge, not to mention that even the dumbest humans would be able to follow the bright bloody trail of her slaughter to track her. Alright, she had to cross the open ground of the keep in order to get to the inner palace itself. Chaos and the stink of human fear provided some cover, but not enough. She opted for no delay and fled along the wall of the smithery before she was completely exposed again. The cries of those who spotted her hurt her ears. The arrows and spears striking the ground in her wake threatened to hurt more than just her ears. I don't know if that works, but I'm going to leave it. They never got a piece of her this time, and she laughed as she crashed through the oaken doors of the palace. Some warriors chased behind her with weapons drawn. Armored knights waited behind those doors for her, but they still cried out in surprise to see her there. Let's say among the flying splinters. Their weapons sliced into her armor and brought forth more black blood. She employed her own cruder weapon and broke through their plating faster. Let's say metal plating. Have I said metal before now? No. Through their metal plating faster than she imagined they liked. Their pink hides, the color of wounded flesh in her mind, were not nearly as tough as her skin. The moment she broke through their armor, their skin parted, their organs ruptured, their bones broke, and they bled out their worthless lives. Then that lovely screaming came again. Alright. She does not like humans. Okay. How easily they died made her the angrier. How easily they died, though, made her all the angrier. These weak and selfish creatures had no right to end the life of a true warrior like Blecht. Let's say not if they were this easy to snuff out. Okay, that sounds sinister enough. At the risk of snapping her iron sword, she battered them harder to make them pay for his life. As voices... I'll make that the same paragraph. I don't think that needs to stand alone. Just the other day, I had somebody on here who was asking about paragraph breaks and stuff, and when you edit them. With what I added to the previous paragraph, I think this sentence goes better there, and it adds some break in the rhythm of where I'm normally using shorter paragraphs. As voices of the approaching mob behind her grew louder, she raced on to stay ahead of them. I've used race several times, so let me try and see charged this time, although I think maybe I used that too. A few more humans challenged her along the way, but they were quick to flee or easy to kill without Wavala having to break stride. She skirted the throne room and saw a few squires standing outside those closed doors. It could be that her targets were in there, and they never expected her to get this far. As she cut her way through a few squires, the others fled. This told her everything she needed to know. This was but a distraction. The real king and queen were either in the tower or on their way there. That's a lot of theirs. She pursued with all haste. The stairs of the tower were blocked by full-grown adult knights. This was the place then. The stairs spiraled upward. Okay, I already said stairs, so let me say steps this time. All right. The steps spiraled upward, so that right-handed warriors, that needs to be plural, found themselves striking the wall as they fought through that narrow space. Wivela laughed because she swung her sword left-handed and made her way up the steps as she took one knight's head. Took away one knight's head after another. Finally, she grew impatient and used her claws and teeth to rip through every man between her and the people who needed to pay, let's say, the most. In her mind, they all need to pay. Who needed to pay the most. All right, save what I have so far. Finally, she grew impatient. Nope, I put that in the wrong place. Sorry about that. I'm adding mistakes instead of taking them away. All right, the most. All right, back to it. The last few men at the top of the stairs were older and had no helmets. Wivela believed these men to be the most loyal to the king and queen behind that last door. While she respected loyalty, she could not stomach devotion to those who slayed the innocent or served evil. She roared at them as they stabbed at her with long spears. Long spears, let's say, too big for this tight space. Maybe, let's say, they must have been counting on luck. I'll make this a new paragraph. Probably don't have to, but I'm going to anyway. She took hold of the metal points and bent them back. Metal points, let's say, of the spearheads. And bent them around backward. There was no room for them to turn the spears or to get an angle on the large goblins, so she batted their useless weapons aside and drove into them with all her force. They tried to escape along the walls, but she swept them together into her arms like a mother scooping up her children. They spit out curses and showed their ugly, dull teeth. Wivela bit through their skulls one after the other, dumping out chunks of their brains. That's pretty gross. All right, she dropped their bodies and vomited out their horrid flavor. That's even grosser. All right, maybe I need to... No, I'll make that its own paragraph. A whimper rose from behind the last door. How dare that worthless hag show small fear now after she had gone? Sorry, man. I'll put a disclaimer up next time. All right. Wivela hammered on the door with her great fist until the wood split and the hardware broke away. You're cracking me up, man. As the door fell, she stepped aside, and the arrows from within bounced off the stone wall across the high passage. She rushed in and took down the archers hiding inside. There he was, that godless monster, the human king who made war against the goblins and killed her man in cold blood. Bloodglove swept the War Hag behind him. Wivela could see he had no hope of saving his wife, but needed to feel like a man at the end all the same. What do you want, monster? He asked in a shaky voice that betrayed his terror. Wivela roared. She started in her native tongue and then broke into the common language of humans. You took him. You overwhelmed him with your numbers. And you lifted... Let me put a comma there. And you lifted his beautiful black heart in your glove before you burned it and him. Goblins attacked us first. Our war, Wivela yelled back, was with the gray elves, and they have no love for humans. You have love for war and hate for all creatures not human. That was your only reason. Oh, thank you for the cheer. I appreciate it. All right. Goblins burned our villages. Villages built on land the goblin kind had ruled for thousands of years before your kind could could even forge metal. All right. Getting a lot of goblin history here, I think. Well, the wars are over. You should not be here. Her eyes burned as she cast their ornate bed aside. When I say eyes and cast, it sounds like they're looking, so that's not exactly what I want to do. As she flipped over their ornate bed, let's say, and it tumbled aside. So I think that paints a picture. She is crashing through the furniture to get to them. He backed into the wall hard enough to possibly crush his wife behind him. She let out another whimper, and Wivela wanted to rip her apart for it. My kind are Hogboon. We never once attacked a human settlement, but you can't tell the difference between a hobgoblin, an orc, and a hogboon, can you? Bloodglove showed his dull teeth and said, "Is there a difference?" As she rushed forward, he changed his tune completely. The human king, is what I want to say here, dropped to his knees, forgot all about his wife, forgot all about, let's say, protecting his wife, and promised Wivela anything she wanted, up to half his kingdom. All right, let me fix that real quick. All right. He said all these things as she tore into him and shredded his insides into mush. All right, let me add something here. Take a good drink of water before I make this bloodier. She was surprised with how long he could still scream with most of his stinking insides spread around the room on the outside. Alright, that's plenty gross. Alright. Let me add one more. Beyond senseless killing, it appeared that screaming was what humans did best. Alright, so that makes us look terrible in this story, but we're writing it from a goblin's perspective. The War Hag dropped to her hands and knees and crawled across the floor toward the overturned bed. Alright, here I want to describe her. Her hair was bent in unnatural spiraled curls. Her lips were painted red like their fresh spilled blood. Some rosy powder had been painted high over her cheeks like a false blush that against her pale human skin made Wivela think of corpses. Okay. So the queen is painted up, but from a goblin's viewpoint, she is hideous. Alright, Wivela tore out Bloodglove's heart last and held the ugly red thing above her hand. Now her fist was bloody with the dead heart of her greatest enemy. If I want a piece of your kingdom, I will take it for myself. The heart sizzled from the blue magic leaking out of the goblin's skin. Wivla consumed the heart despite the sour flavor of human all through it. As she turned, she spied the War Hag with her long hair, the color of straw, her long, spiral, curled hair, the color of straw, streaming down her narrow, bony shoulders. Okay. The hag turned up a bottle that had been scattered to the floor with other spilled items. From other spilled items, let's say in the room. I was going to get specific about the architecture of the shelves and bedside tables, but that's not important. Alright, the goblin raced forward and slapped the stuff out of the hag's hand before the creature could consume what was inside. Wivla lifted the human queen up by her throat. The wretched creature cried, whimpered, and sniffled. The goblin turned up her gray lip in disgust. You have quite a taste for murder until it comes to your own bedchamber, the goblin growled in the war hag's face. You think I'll let you poison yourself and die in quiet peace after all the nights you've slept since you stole him from me. Slept, let's say peacefully. Peacefully since you stole him from me. I've never been on the battlefield, the war hag whispered. Lies. I saw you upon a cushioned chair high on a hill as your man slaughtered Hogboon children. The hag shook her head. I was just there for... I don't make war. I didn't know they were children. They were so big. They were different from you is what you mean, War Hag. Not being a warrior does not excuse your part in his death. He defended our caves and our people with his life longer than you have been alive. There is no justice in a world where you live and he does not. All right. Then please kill me, she begged the goblin. Make it quick if you are truly better than us. Wivla showed her sharp teeth. I am better than you, but it will be quite slow. Shouting voices rose as more human warriors charged up the spiral stairs of the tower, littered with bodies and gore. Time was up. Wivla tucked the sniveling war hag under one gray arm and struck the curved wall with her bulk. The stone fell away, and she leapt through the air to the wall. Okay. Gonna add something here because I had her, I had arrows sticking out of her. The blue, enjoying the show, I hope. All right, the blue energy around her buzzed inside her head and pulsed painfully through her veins. The price she offered the goblin gods for this power was going to come due soon. The arrows still sticking out of her sent sharp pains through her body. Okay. Let's say magically enhanced. We'll just go right out and say it. Magically enhanced body. Okay. Okay, the warriors still on the wall looked up in shock. The great goblins, surrounded by the residue of the artifact's magic, jumped from the wall to the ground. Outside the castle walls. Okay. Now let's spell castle right. We're almost at the end. Might as well spell some words right. The land was riddled with arrows and scorched black in several places, but Wivela planned to be long gone before the War Hag's people rallied to follow. It was time these humans learned the cost of coming after her kind.